The laptop was still humming when Claire saw the message. One new email. Subject line, target confirmed. Proceed. For a second, she thought it was spam, until she noticed the name in the sender field. Ashley Morrison. Her daughter. That's when everything she thought she knew about love, family, and loyalty began to unravel. But this isn't where the story starts. It begins 3 months earlier, on the day a widow from Mansfield, Ohio, learned that money doesn't change who you are, it just shows everyone else who they've been all along. The envelope had been sitting on the kitchen counter all morning, next to an empty mug and a cooling pot of coffee. Claire finally tore it open at noon, expecting another bill. Instead, a check slid out, 6 figures long enough to make her blink twice. $1 million. The kitchen clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. For a long minute, she just stared at the paper that could change everything. Her husband had been gone 8 years. His brother, Vernon, had just passed quietly in his sleep. And somehow, against every expectation, he'd left her everything. Mom? Ashley's voice came from the hallway, light and impatient. She was 25, all perfume and phone screens, her hair still wet from a too-long shower. What's that? Claire tried to sound calm. Your uncle left us some money. Ashley snatched the check before Claire could stop her. Her eyes went wide. $1 million? Mom, we're rich. Claire smiled faintly. Not rich, sweetheart. Just stable. Finally. But Ashley was already dreaming out loud, new city, new car, new life. Claire watched her daughter's reflection in the window, bright, beautiful, restless. The kind of young woman who thought happiness came with a price tag. Maybe we should save most of it, Claire said carefully. Invest, make it last. Ashley's enthusiasm dimmed. Save it? You've been saving your whole life, Mom. When do we start living? I've been living, Claire replied softly. Just not the kind of life you can post online. Ashley laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. She set the check back on the counter like it was something fragile. You'll change your mind. When the front door shut behind her, the silence felt heavier than before. Claire looked down at the check again, then at the empty mug. Money, she thought, had a way of testing people, sometimes the ones closest to you. That afternoon, she stopped at Murphy's Coffee on her way home from the elementary school where she worked as a nurse. The place smelled like cinnamon and rain. She slid into her usual booth and opened a dog-eared romance novel. Mind if I join you? A man asked. He was tall, with gray at his temples and sawdust on his jacket. His smile was easy. Trustworthy. The kind that made you forget to guard yourself. Claire should have said no. Instead, she closed her book and said, sure. And that was the moment, quiet, unremarkable, when the trap was set and the game began. David became part of her days before Claire realized it had happened. It started with small coincidences. He'd happened to show up at Murphy's whenever she was there, always with the same smile, the same flannel shirts that smelled faintly of cedar and sawdust. He talked about fixing houses, about building things from scratch. Claire liked that. She'd spent years patching her life together with duct tape and overtime shifts. The idea of someone who repaired instead of abandoned felt almost sacred. He listened. Really listened. When she mentioned her husband's favorite movie, he remembered the title a week later. When she said she missed the sound of laughter in her kitchen, he started telling her stories that made her laugh. It had been so long since anyone had done that. Ashley noticed, of course. You've been smiling more, she teased one night over dinner. What's his name? Claire tried to downplay it, but her daughter had that knowing gleam in her eye. Just someone I met at the coffee shop. Ashley leaned back, twirling her fork. Be careful, Mom. Guys who hang out in coffee shops at lunchtime usually have too much time and not enough honesty. Claire raised an eyebrow. And what about girls who spend their time warning their mothers about men they've never met? Ashley grinned, but there was an edge under it. I just don't want to see you hurt again. It was sweet, Claire thought, or maybe strategic. Sometimes with Ashley, it was hard to tell. The following week, David invited Claire to see one of his renovation projects. Nothing fancy, he'd said, just an old house that needs a second chance. The place smelled like dust and potential. As he described what it would look like when it was done, she found herself imagining more than drywall and paint. She imagined a future that wasn't just surviving. When he offered her his jacket against the chill, she didn't protest. It had been years since anyone had been that thoughtful. That night, she told Ashley about it, expecting teasing. Instead, Ashley looked oddly serious. He sounds nice, she said slowly. What does he do again? Contracting. Remodeling homes. Ashley nodded, distracted, stirring her pasta though she hadn't taken a bite. Sounds promising. Just, keep me updated, okay? On my dating life? Claire laughed. Why? Ashley shrugged. Because I'm your daughter. It's what daughters do. But when Ashley left the table, Claire noticed her phone light up with a text she didn't read. Ashley's face turned away just enough to hide her expression. Later that week, David showed up outside Claire's work with coffee and a shy smile. You looked like you could use a break, he said. She had, in fact, been having one of the hardest days of the semester, sick kids, endless paperwork, and an ache in her chest that felt like loneliness with a pulse. She took the cup, warmth seeping into her hands. You always show up at the right time. Just lucky, I guess, he said. But Claire didn't believe in luck. Not anymore. The shop smelled like solder and burnt dust, the kind of scent that clings to your hands even after you've washed them. Claire hadn't planned to be there. She just wanted to surprise Ashley, get her laptop fixed before her birthday. Something simple, something motherly. Jimmy, the technician, greeted her with a nervous smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Morrison, he said, fidgeting with a flash drive, I think you should come to the back for a second. Claire followed him through a narrow hallway lined with computer parts. He stopped at a workstation, her daughter's laptop glowing under harsh fluorescent light. When I was cleaning up the system, he began carefully, I found some messages. At first, I thought they were junk files, until I read one. He clicked open a folder, and the words filled the screen like a confession written in code. Subject lines, payment schedule. Target information. The name under from made her heart stutter. Ashley Morrison. The name under to hollowed her out completely. David Harrison. Her breath caught. This must be a mistake. Jimmy didn't look at her. I wish it was. He scrolled through a thread of emails. Words blurred together, lonely widow, inheritance, emotional vulnerabilities. Her life dissected like a case study. Every detail intimate, exact. She knows I make coffee at 6:30, Claire whispered, half to herself. That I watch old movies on Sundays, Jimmy hesitated. Ma'am, one of the emails mentions, compensation. 50,000. To make it look like love. The room tilted. Claire reached for the desk to steady herself. For a long time, she couldn't move, couldn't speak. Just stared at the messages as if her disbelief might make them vanish. Should I call the police? Jimmy asked quietly. Claire shook her head. No. Not yet. She made him print every email, 43 pages that fluttered in her trembling hands. Then she left without remembering how she got to her car. Rain had started to fall. Each drop hit the windshield like an accusation. She sat there, staring at the papers on the passenger seat, her daughter's name typed over and over like proof of betrayal. Her mind played back everything, Ashley's sudden curiosity about David, the cautious questions, the too eager approval. All of it had been performance. Not to protect her. To study her. She waited for the breakdown that should have come, the sobbing, the shaking, the disbelief. But what rose inside her instead was colder, sharper. Rage. Not the kind that burns and fades, but the kind that clarifies. The kind that turns grief into strategy. Claire looked at the reflection of her own eyes in the rearview mirror. They didn't look like the eyes of a victim. "Okay," she whispered. "You want a performance? I'll give you one." She folded the papers neatly, tucked them into a manila envelope, and started the car. If they wanted her money, they'd have to earn it. And when they did, she'd be waiting, one step ahead, smiling like the perfect mark. Claire rehearsed the role until it felt real. The trusting widow. The woman who wanted to believe in love again. Every smile, every pause, every soft laugh was deliberate now. She met David for coffee the next day as if nothing had changed. His charm was practiced, but she saw it now, the subtle manipulation behind every word. He reached across the table, brushing her hand. "You've been quiet today. Something on your mind?" Claire looked down, letting her voice tremble just enough. "Just thinking about the future. About what I'm supposed to do with everything." "You mean the inheritance?" He said it gently, like a man who already knew the answer. "I've been cautious my whole life," she said. "Maybe it's time I stopped being so afraid." His eyes lit up the way predators must when prey steps closer. "Fear can keep you safe, Claire, but it can also keep you small. You deserve more than small." He was good. Almost convincing enough to make her forget that she'd read his script. That night at dinner, Claire brought it up to Ashley. "David thinks I should invest some of the money. Real estate, maybe." Ashley didn't even blink. "That sounds smart, Mom. David knows what he's doing." The lie rolled off her tongue so easily it almost impressed Claire. She played along, pretending to hesitate, to seek her daughter's reassurance. "You don't think I'm being foolish? He's still new in my life." Ashley smiled, eyes bright. "Mom, you've earned a little foolishness. Besides, you trust him, don't you?" That line, "You trust him, don't you?" echoed in Claire's mind long after Ashley went to bed. It wasn't a question. It was confirmation. By morning, Claire had called Marcus Webb, her husband's old business partner. She hadn't spoken to him in years, but he was still a lawyer, and, more importantly, one of the few people who'd never underestimated her. Marcus listened as she explained everything, the emails, the fake affection, the betrayal. He didn't interrupt. When she was finished, he said quietly, "You know this is conspiracy to commit fraud, right? You have enough to put them both away." "I know," she said. "But I want to handle this first." "Handle it how?" "I want them to think they're winning." He frowned. "Claire, this isn't a game." "It is to them," she said. "And I'm done being the pawn." Over the next few days, she crafted her performance. She let David feed her his fantasy of shared success, 6 houses, quick profits, a future together. She signed mock documents, smiled in all the right places, even feigned excitement at his promises. When he told her he'd need the funds ready by Friday, she nodded sweetly. "Of course. I'll go to the bank first thing." Inside, she was already building something else, a trap disguised as trust. That night, alone in her kitchen, Claire poured herself a real cup of coffee and laid out the printed emails one last time. Her hands no longer shook. The fear had burned away, leaving only focus. Tomorrow, she would stop pretending. Tomorrow, they'd all learn what happens when you underestimate someone who's lost everything but her resolve. The dinner table gleamed under the soft light, polished to perfection like a stage. Claire had set it carefully, wine glasses, linen napkins, the good dishes she hadn't used since her husband's funeral. The pasta sauce simmered on the stove, filling the air with warmth that didn't reach her chest. Ashley walked in first, still smelling faintly of syrup and cheap coffee from her shift. "You cooked," she said, smiling like everything was normal. "I thought we could celebrate," Claire replied. "David's joining us." Ashley froze for half a second, just long enough for Claire to see the calculation flash behind her eyes. Then came the practiced enthusiasm. "That's great. What's the occasion? The investment went through. Ashley's smile wavered. Already? Already, Claire said. The knock came exactly on time. David stood at the door in a pressed suit, holding a bottle of champagne and wearing Triumph-like cologne. To new beginnings, he said, stepping inside. To trust, Claire replied. They ate, talked, laughed. Claire played her part flawlessly. Her eyes glistened in all the right places, her laughter light, her gratitude believable. But inside, she felt her pulse steady like a heartbeat synced to purpose. Every word, every toast, was another turn of the key. When the plates were cleared, she poured the champagne. To us, David said, raising his glass. To getting exactly what we deserve, Claire answered. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Marcus. All in place. She stood, phone in hand, her voice calm. That was my lawyer. He wanted to congratulate us on the big investment. David's smile faltered. Your lawyer? Of course. You don't move $800,000 without legal advice. Ashley blinked. Mom, what are you talking about? Claire walked to the table drawer and pulled out a thick manila envelope. I'm talking about this. She spread the printed emails across the table. The pages whispered as they slid against one another, sharp as knives. Ashley's breath hitched. David went still. Payment upon completion, $50,000, Claire read aloud. Target is receptive to attention. Lonely widow. Emotionally vulnerable. Does that sound familiar? David's jaw tightened. Claire, there's been a mistake. No, she interrupted, her voice clear, almost serene. The mistake was thinking I wouldn't find out. Ashley's eyes filled. Mom, please, don't, Claire snapped, louder than she meant to. Don't call me that right now. Outside, sirens wailed, distant but growing louder. David turned toward the door, but Claire's voice stopped him cold. I wouldn't. The police have been parked down the street for the past hour. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for the first time, the mask slipped. Not the charming contractor now, but the predator cornered in his own trap. The knock on the door was sharp, commanding. Ashley began to cry, ugly and broken. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. Claire watched her daughter crumble, feeling everything at once, grief, fury, and something like relief. You sold me, she said quietly. And I still would have forgiven you. But you never gave me the chance. When the officers entered, David didn't resist. Ashley did, only for a second, before realizing her mother wasn't going to stop them. As they led them out into the night, Claire stood by the window, her reflection split by raindrops. For the first time in years, the house was silent. And for the first time, that silence felt like peace. Morning came gray and soft, the kind of light that makes everything look half-erased. Claire stood in her kitchen, the same one where she'd once worried about bills and burned toast, and watched the coffee drip into her favorite chipped mug. The house was too quiet now, stripped of Ashley's footsteps, David's voice, and all the noise that used to fill the space between love and lies. Her phone rang. Detective Martinez again, polite, steady, a voice Claire had come to trust. Mrs. Morrison, she said, we wanted to let you know David Harrison, real name Michael Chen, pled guilty this morning. 20 years without parole. Claire stared at the steam rising from her mug. And Ashley? She's cooperating. Probation, counseling, and a full restitution agreement. The judge took your statement into account. My statement? You said you didn't want revenge. Just honesty. The detective paused. That mattered. After the call ended, Claire walked to the window. The world outside looked ordinary again, mail trucks, neighbors walking dogs, someone mowing a lawn. It felt strange that her life had changed so completely while everything else stayed the same. On the counter sat a sealed envelope. Ashley's handwriting. Claire had left it unopened for weeks. Today, her hands didn't shake when she tore it open. Mom, I know you probably hate me. You should. But I want you to know that I never stopped loving you, even when I was too weak to act like it. I thought I was saving myself. I see now I was destroying the only person who ever saved me. If you can't forgive me, I'll understand. Just, live. Please. Don't let me be the last mistake you make room for in your life. The words blurred before she reached the end. Not from sorrow exactly, but from the exhaustion of carrying too many emotions at once. She folded the letter neatly and placed it in the drawer where her husband's old wedding ring still rested. Some things didn't need to be fixed, only understood. Weeks passed. The world didn't feel dangerous anymore, just quiet in a way that left room to breathe. Claire started volunteering at the hospital on weekends, rediscovering what she'd once loved about helping people. She'd stopped checking her phone for texts that wouldn't come, stopped wondering whether David's charm had ever been real. One evening, she drove past Murphy's Coffee. Through the window, she saw another woman sitting alone at the same booth where it had all begun. A man was standing near her, smiling the kind of smile that used to melt Claire's guard. She almost stopped, almost walked in to warn her. But she didn't. Because some lessons can't be borrowed. They have to be lived. Claire turned the car toward the highway instead, windows down, wind in her hair. The world beyond Mansfield was wide and unpromised, and for the first time in years, she wanted the unknown. She smiled to herself, a quiet, private smile. Sometimes survival isn't about fighting back. Sometimes it's about finally walking away, and not looking over your shoulder.